Today, we're talking about clear definitions. Clear definitions specifically for the words thought, faith, and belief, and how these clear definitions have changed the way that I view the world, but I might be a little bit odd. I have here with me today to bounce these ideas off, Ian.
Well, hello, folks. Welcome to the cast.
And Ian, I want to just jump right in. So this is something that I sat down to write because for me, getting clear internal definitions, I'm not talking about dictionary definitions. I'm talking about the useful definitions that I use when I think about these words. Getting useful definitions of certain words was a really key unlock for me. And thought, faith, and belief are three words that I've really firmed up. And as I've firmed them up and clarified what I mean by them, when I use them for myself, it's given me a broader understanding of the world. And I'm wondering if I can walk you through that and then you can tell me, oh, that makes a lot of sense, or that's kind of nuts.
Oh, I'm intrigued, so let's go.
Okay. So I'll give you a quick summary first, and then we can kind of go in a little bit deeper. But thinking is difficult. Most people aren't doing it when they think they're doing it. And at its best, thinking describes what is. Faith is a system of belief. It's not a very high standard, and it defines what should or ought be. And belief is your so what or now what, and it describes the action that you take. Gut feeling?
I'm intrigued. We can dig deeper now.
All right, cool.
I think some of it resonates.
Yeah.
I think I might have some counterpoints or some
Absolutely.
seasoning to throw on top.
Sure. So thinking, my definition of thinking is related to analysis, consideration, fact-finding, and problem solving, right? So I really put that in the analytical space. And for me, thinking is a high standard and it's difficult. So much of the time, somebody throws information at us and it is our ego responding, or it is our gut feeling, our emotions responding. And then later we justify it, right? Thinking requires us to hold up ideas and kind of like turn them around and look at them and try to remove bias and assumption from those ideas. And removing bias and assumption is really hard. It's really, really hard. One example of how we gather data that will allow us to think properly. Keep in mind, I'm not saying that this is thinking. One of the ways we gather data is by using the scientific method, where you make a guess. I understand a hypothesis is more than a guess. I'm being a little facetious here. You make a best guess based on the information that you have and your biases, and then you do your best to remove as much bias in the outcome of the experiment as possible, right? So maybe it's a double-blind study where the people who are taking measurements don't even know what they're measuring, right? But that allows you to be more objective about the data. Maybe you have a control group or a control of some sort where you're observing unchanged and then observing changed. Maybe you have a situation where everything is blind and the people that you're testing or observing don't even know you're testing or observing them, to create as much lack of bias as possible, to create as much objectivity as possible. And that quality information that comes out of a study like that may or may not be flawed. And the researchers will tell you this. The scientists will tell you this. They will say, hey, this is the data we gathered this time with this methodology, right? But there's a strong attempt to remove as much bias as possible. And then once you have that high quality data, you can use that to try to think. So in my conception, right, in the way that I observe the world, thinking is that kind of a standard. And for most people, you're a lot better off saying, what's worked for other people? I'm going to copy that. I'm not going to try to think at this thing that I'm not expert at. I'm going to copy what somebody else has done. For people that have experience in an occupation or they have training on like logic and philosophy and know how to approach these sorts of things, they can go into their area of expertise, into their discipline. They can go in and they can take ideas from people within that area of expertise and combine them. And the combination of ideas is one form of thinking. Educating others on the ideas that exist within a given space. Again, it's narrow, right? I'm not saying broad thinking, but educating others on ideas within a given space is another type of thinking where you're taking these ideas that already exist mostly and simplifying them and making them more accessible to more people so that they can also absorb those ideas and reuse them or combine them, right? And then at the peak, you have the people who generate all the ideas from scratch, right? The ones who are going deep on this particular discipline, calling out their assumptions, and then just creating these new approaches and these new ways of doing things that are more than just combining old ideas, but actually generating new ones. So I would consider all of those levels of thinking and then just gut response to something you're hearing for the first time, not quite thought. And I don't say this way to demean anybody, but this is a really useful way for me to think about the word thinking as I sit down and try to conceptualize and predict what's going on around me.
It's way deeper than I've ever thought about thinking. Number one. People may find out I'm not the deepest thinker all the time.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I like some of the breakdown of it for sure. I can see the value in it and understanding how a scientific process or just thinking or getting to resolve. I think saying thinking is hard isn't a perfect statement because basic level thinking to function in the world isn't that hard. But deep thinking, life-changing thinking, growth thinking can be hard. Also, if you have set forth in your life that you are somebody that has what, the growth mindset, shall we say,
Sure.
And you are committed to continuing to expand your mind and grow, thinking, although maybe challenging, because if you're trying to push beyond the bounds of your normal constraints, I wouldn't necessarily say it's hard because if you're continuing to grow over time, your ability to break down and digest data and think through these processes actually is going to evolve. So it will be challenging. It doesn't mean there won't be a challenge. And on the front side, yeah, I think initially hard is go to the gym and start lifting weights. It starts out hard. But then as you progress, now it goes from being hard to being challenging. Because it's not, okay, you go into the gym and you can bench 80 pounds and that's it. Well, now you're up to, you can bench 250. Now it's more of a challenge, less of a hard for you at that point, because you've broke through that initial, this is hard because I can barely push up an 80-pound bar. Well, now you're doing triple that. So now it's more to a point of, now it's challenging you to how far can you go? How far can you grow and expand?
So I like this pushback and this analogy. Let me clarify. When I say thinking is hard, I mean thinking isn't automatic. And lots of times when people assume that they're thinking, they're not.
Okay.
And the reason I like the analogy is you're deciding to go to the gym, and in the gym, you're doing a structured thing. That is what thinking is in my conception. You're sitting down and you're saying, I need to solve this problem, have other people solve this problem so that I don't have to think. No? Okay, I need to solve this problem. What do I think about this?
Okay. I can see where you're coming from, and that's fair.
Yeah.
And intentional thinking is hard because we can be so automatic
Mhm.
and just go through life. And that's also how so often in life you hear about people that hit their 40s, hit their 50s, hit their 60s, hit retirement. How did I get here?
Mhm.
Because in your description, which fits perfectly, they haven't been intentionally thinking about. And I would think that as you're describing thinking to me is that, do you have a growth mindset or do you have the fixed mindset? Because if life is just life and you're doing it every day, you're not thinking, you're not growing,
Mhm.
not of any real substance. But if you have the growth mindset that I'm continuing to try to get better each day, trying to evolve, trying to learn from what I'm doing, that requires active thinking. You have to analyze your life and what you're doing and the direction and the path you're on and
Yep.
make
Reflection,
adjustments.
analysis, adjustment. Yep.
That falls into that thinking category to me.
Mhm.
That's so for me, when you're describing thinking to me, it really, to me, yes, the thinking is hard. I get that. And I think for me to draw the lines, it would be fixed mindset, growth mindset.
Right.
And folks, if you get online, there's super cool little things that you can go through and it'll lay out like 12 categories and they ask you questions and you can see kind of where you are if you honestly do it to how open you actually are in your mind. It's actually super cool to do
Mhm.
because it can be challenging because you can think you're way more open than you are in some areas. And then other areas you think you're closed off and you're actually pretty broad in.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So let me parlay us over
Yeah.
into faith.
Let's go.
Okay. When I say faith, a lot of people are going to hear religion. It's not what I'm talking about. Faith is accepting a family or system of ideas, and it doesn't require you to vet all of those ideas. So it's a much lower standard in terms of the intentionality of it. Faith is incredibly useful. And I would put it even at the level of, I have faith that my parents know how to live, and so I'm going to imitate them. Right? I have faith that the school I'm going to is going to teach me a certain way, so I'm going to listen to what my teacher has to say. Right? Or in the converse, right? I have faith that my teachers don't have my best in mind. And so I'm going to ignore them, which often happens in teenage years. Right?
No. I was a perfect student.
And then in business, you can have faith that a certain technique or method or a certain type of content will get you somewhere without having data. And entrepreneurship in particular, you must have an enormous amount of faith because you usually don't have the data that would allow you to justify that level of faith in yourself. In order to get started, you have to have an immense amount of faith that you can succeed, or that if you do this thing that nobody else is doing, that it will work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and faith is, I have here things I wrote. Faith is deeply tied into culture. We have faith on topics like our economic system, which is all faith, scientific discovery, politicians, and how other people should behave in society. That's all tied to faith in the way that I conceptualize the word faith. What's your reaction?
That people don't realize how much faith that they have in the world that they live in.
Mm-hmm.
I have faith that what's in this can is what they say it is, and it's not poison and it won't kill me.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what's actually in it. I haven't tested it. I haven't done research on it,
Mm-hmm.
but I have faith.
Mm-hmm.
I go to Burger King and pray and then order something, and I hope it comes out without spit. Yeah. But I have faith that I'm going to get my burger with pickles, ketchup, mustard, onion.
Yep.
I have faith that that's going to happen.
Yep.
There's different levels of faith. There's things that it's more identifiable, but most of our life is lived in a state of faith. Faith on the actions of other people and the people that we live in and the agreed upon structure of the society we have. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're driving down the road, you have faith that I'm going to stay on my side and you're going to stay on your side. But there's nothing saying they will. It's faith. It's faith that that's going to happen. At any moment, we've all seen that could change. We have faith that I can drive this car down the road and I'm going to do what I'm supposed to, and they're going to do what they're supposed to. But I don't get to control what they do. They don't get to control what I do. It's faith.
Yep.
It's faith is so much more broad and in our face. And I have a feeling when we move from faith to belief, that'll play with this and kind of feel where we're going. And I could be wrong too. Mm-hmm. I've been wrong before, but I have faith I can learn.
Yeah. When I was talking to Luke about this, I misspoke, and it reminded me of a joke. Why do so many people become atheists after they fight Mike Tyson?
Oh gosh.
Because he punches them right in the face. Thank you for not spitting at my microphone.
We're here all day, folks. It's so good.
It's such a dumb joke. I love it.
It is. It's so good.
All right. So that moves us over to belief. And remember at the start, I said belief is our so what or our now what. In English, the word belief is really like a muddled mess. And part of where I absorbed my definition of this is from older forms of this word that go back to Greek and Latin and Hebrew, where belief implies action. And when I start thinking about belief being the intersection of faith and action, that completely changed my view of the world. Because there's a few different aspects that go into it. So belief, many of your beliefs are unconscious, or they're based on unconscious assumptions about the world. So when I come into this studio and I sit on this chair, I'm showing a belief that I'm not going to fall through the floor and into the center of the earth, right? I'm showing a belief that I'm not going to float up off the chair and smash into the ceiling. That belief is such a simple thing when you start to think about it in those terms, but there's lots of nuance to it. Some beliefs can be innate, like, I don't want to die. That's a belief almost everyone's got, and it's really interesting when you bump into it for the first time. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, some are learned as well. So you can have beliefs that if I tell the truth, the best thing is always going to happen. So I'm going to tell the truth all the time, right? And that's a faith that becomes a belief when you act it out. And faith becoming action is one version of belief. But it gets really, really interesting because sometimes your beliefs conflict with each other. And since so many of our beliefs are unconscious, when you have conflicting beliefs, it can be a very difficult thing for you to explain to another person or even for you to understand. So I have another example that I wrote in here, and that is when you learn in your science class or your math class, depending when people get physics, when you learn about the conservation of momentum, you're taking it on faith that the teacher knows what they're talking about. But when you walk out on the playground and you grab a swing and you hold it up to your face and you let go, that's belief. I have faith that this isn't going to hit me in the face. Drop. Let's see what happens. Right?
It's a fun visual representation.
Yeah.
And one I've never actually done, and now I want to go do it.
Go try it. So, thoughts on that?
I like the faith plus action equals belief. I think that resonates. I think that kind of lands. Mm-hmm. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And actually, as you're sharing it, my mind kind of wandered off into a little bit of, okay, what are my beliefs? Because if you're saying, okay, we don't necessarily know all of our beliefs, or we're not conscious of them, and they can conflict with each other. So some of my beliefs, yeah, I could easily name off. But what are the ones that would be more challenging for me to think of? What are the ones that would take me work? And what would it look like if I unpacked those? It makes me think it'd be a wonderful time to start just writing every belief that I have down without any boundaries. What do I believe? Write it all down without thinking about what I wrote before. And then go back and read through them all and see which ones conflict with each other or don't align or don't make any sense. It's an interesting thought of where a faith and an action. And I think with going from being a child to a teenager to a young adult to married to kids to, middle age, what kind of beliefs do I have that come from a past Ian? That isn't present anymore, but it's still a belief I'm carrying with me that doesn't actually fit, serve, or suit where I'm actually at. But it's still bouncing around in somewhere. And I think about, so if you grow up and the belief is you grow up somewhere that, everybody stays in the same small town, marries somebody from that small town, works one of the 5 places in town that everybody works, goes to the bar every weekend, takes 2 vacations a year, and your belief is that's what your life is, then how likely are you to stay and live that versus, well, no, I want to expand. I want to move outside of this. How much of that can be a subconscious belief of, oh, this is my life. This is what I'm supposed to do. And if that is what you grew up believing, but now you've left that, but you haven't, shall we say, had a funeral for that belief and put it to bed, well, what kind of inner turmoil and conflict could that be creating when there's 2 versions of you inside battling it out?
Yeah.
You have this belief of who you are becoming, but this old version's in there like, nah, I ain't going anywhere, buddy. I'm here. I'm sticking around.
Yep.
So that's less to, I like the breakdowns of these. I don't know that I have much to add to spice that up, more of the challenge to myself and to others of what are your beliefs? What do those look like? Put them down on paper and then start comparing.
Well, there's a great way to start identifying your beliefs, but it's painful. And it might start prompting some stories that you have about this, where you've experienced this. Dissonance. So, our experiences can shake the way that we think. They can shake the way that we have faith, or we can change our faith system, right? Based on some event that occurs. And our experiences can also shake our belief. You can think something sincerely and fail to live it out. It frequently happens that you adopt a faith and then don't follow through on it, right? And that faith could be propaganda. That faith could be like a monetary approach. If I save X number of dollars, blah, 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 right? Then I'll become rich over time if I save X number of dollars a month. But then you don't do it, even though you have a strong faith that that's true. And that hypocrisy, the difference between our faith and our belief, can come from competing beliefs or unconscious beliefs. And discovering that you have a deeply held belief that does not work is a tragedy that causes pain. Discovering that your chosen beliefs, the faith that you have that you're trying to turn into action, are in conflict with stronger subconscious beliefs is also a tragedy that can cause you a lot of pain.
And based on previous conversations we have had,
Yes.
it makes me think about apology and forgiveness and releasing those things.
Yep.
Because apologies and forgiveness is painful. Not always, but it can be. I'd say more often than not, a true apology and true forgiveness doesn't feel great in the moment.
Right.
But long term, it's beneficial. I think this falls in the same category. I can see where doing that deep work is not going to be super awesome initially.
No.
But once you start getting through that, is where the change happens and you really get to evolve. And I would say doing something like this, deep work like this, is not something to purely do alone. Getting your list together of your beliefs, your basic outline of beliefs, that's you. That's between you and God, you and whatever. It's a you thing to put that work in. But then once you have that together, having a spouse or a close friend or a mentor or a parent or a cousin or an uncle, somebody that you trust, that you know loves you and cares for you, to kind of flush those things out with you. Because we all have blinders. We can look this all up and down and think, yep, I'm doing this great. That doesn't serve me. I'm not doing that. And then somebody else comes over and goes, absolutely not. You're not doing that. Yeah, I am. Are you sure? Really?
And
please explain how you're doing that then.
So I like the direction you're taking this. It's interesting because I agree with you. A lot of people, when they're faced with this dissonance, right, that dissonance creates pain. And so what they want to do is either ignore it or explain why it didn't work this time, but it will work next time. Right? Oh, this was the reason in this case, but next time will be different.
I touched the stove for 3 seconds instead of 2. That's why I got burned.
Right.
Not because
Exactly.
it's hot.
Exactly. It's just kind of, this month my car broke down and I had bills, so I didn't put money away for my retirement. But next month I'll do it. And yeah, that happens. All that stuff happens a lot. The thing is, if it happens every single month, you're not following through on that belief. Something's getting in the way. What's getting in the way? And that is probably a nested thing, a multi-layered nested thing where that faith that putting money away will put you in a better place in the future, right? I'm trying to use this one because it seems innocuous, but it's not that innocuous, I guess. But putting money away because it'll benefit you in the future is a faith that you have, and you're trying to turn that into belief. And your desire to continue living life the way you're living it, or your desire to, keep up with the Joneses, as boomers used to say, or, your desire to have convenient food now. So you're going to pay a delivery fee for fast food so that it's cold when it gets to you. Like, I get a little silly on this stuff.
We could dive way down that one, but we're not going to.
Yeah.
We'll stay on track, folks.
Yeah. Oh man, when they introduced financing for delivery, I was just like, oh no, we already have that. It's called a credit card. It's already a bad idea when you do it on a credit card. Don't introduce 12 easy payments for your hamburger. Oh, people are hurting themselves with this stuff. So sometimes you just don't know that you're hurting yourself, but a lot of times it's just, I want to continue to live this way. And so I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this. And so it's not that a directly competing belief, but it's a multi-layered thing where you have to figure out how to suss out what's going on there and change your perspective.
And I think hitting on one like that, I think too, there is your conflicting beliefs and family, spouse, friends, their beliefs, their views can muddy those waters real quick. Because especially if you were raised to believe that you have to give a certain quality of life to your family, and you're supposed to do these certain things, and you're supposed to have these nice things or do these certain things. And the only way you can do that is to ignore the saving for the future. But because of the beliefs of the people you grew up with and around, or the people that you are in community with, you're letting those beliefs come in and conflict with your beliefs.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think the belief is an internal one, but other times it could be external ones that are conflicting, and you're letting them overtake your belief. And when it comes to relationships and family, it's not just simple and easy, and it's not. I can appreciate that, and I understand that.
Yeah, you're talking about beliefs and then expectations that are built off those beliefs and how those expectations interact with you, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
but it's a real part of the beliefs,
right?
Very much so.
Until you figure out how to make some of those implicit, unconscious things conscious, it really messes with you. Once you're able to actually make those things conscious, then the dissonance starts to fade because you recognize the problem and you can conceptualize it. The dissonance that you can't conceptualize, you can't figure out why you're not living the way you want to live, because these beliefs are conflicting, that's worse, and it's harder to face, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, yeah. So I'd also say, so you talked about bringing somebody in to help you. Don't be the person that tries to help without being asked to help.
Yes.
Because if you identify somebody else's dissonance and you push on them, they will take that pain that they're feeling, that psychological pain they're experiencing from that dissonance, and blame the messenger, right? And you might be off too. So there's always a risk of that. But when they take that pain and they redirect it towards you as you being the cause, that makes them much less likely to actually identify the cause and do the work of figuring out what's going on. There are relationships where you can be that person where you call them to the mat. And those sorts of relationships, usually,
and they're far and few and in between.
Yeah. I mean, there are cases where you have to.
That's fair.
And do that very cautiously. That should be approached with fear and trembling, because the likelihood that you push that person away instead of actually helping them is high.
Well, and to me, the thing I think about is when it comes to things of that nature, one of the best ways that I've found in life to approach those things is if you actually do that same work yourself, and then you bring somebody who you know needs to do that same work in on the work you did, and actually show them what you did and how that benefited your life and impacted you. Mm-hmm. You don't tell them to go do it themselves. You go, hey, I did this thing. Mm-hmm. Here's all the things I found that I was doing wrong or I believed and was disrupting my life. And here's the path that I used. And you wouldn't believe what my life's been like the last 6 weeks, the last 6 months, the da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, try to inspire them to choose that path.
Show them what the impact is and what it did for you. And then just leave that there and let that sit. And that's going back to other conversations. If you want them to accept that and to grow with it, chances are when you share it in that moment, they're not just going to be like, oh, I got to do that right now. I mean, sure, that'd be super cool. Probably not going to happen. But give it a little bit of time, let them think on it.
Yeah.
If you can, 2 weeks, a month later, something, maybe sprinkle in another little nugget of, Yeah, the belief thing again. There's another thing that came up, and
Nuggets.
I made another adjustment, and I didn't realize I was still carrying this one with me. And just talk about it in such a positive way that it builds the intrigue for them. They want, okay, I'm seeing this change in them. They keep talking about this thing. Maybe I should lean into this. That can work. Not always, but it can. And generally it's more effective than, hey, you got a problem, you should fix it. We don't respond to that well. I don't.
Okay, random non sequitur.
Yeah.
You mentioned nuggets. You know what's cool about having kids? You discover that the macros of chicken nuggets are actually pretty decent.
You're not wrong.
And you could eat like a child and still gain muscle.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Okay.
The amount of bodybuilders I see that eat dino nuggets,
yeah,
it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. All the dino nuggets in a chicken parmesan is just a beautiful disaster. I love it so much.
So with that said, folks, sometimes it's okay to get a little outside the box.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Any parting thoughts?
Don't be afraid to do the deep work. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. I think I like the way you broke it down. I think it's something that's worth a rewatch and to really put some thought into. More than anything, the thinking and the faith, kind of cool to give some boundaries and outline, but to truly evaluate your beliefs and where you sit and what those beliefs actually look like. Because I would challenge that virtually everybody, if they actually put a list together of beliefs, are going to find a conflict or two in there. And if I know anything, dropping something that doesn't serve you only makes you feel that much better. It makes your life that much easier. So that's what I got from it.
All right, folks, let us know what you react to this, right? And in your comments, if you make a comment, let us know, is this comment a reaction, a gut feeling? It doesn't resonate with my experience, or I think. Becoming our age, again, learning, laughs, relationships, and responsibility. This is a key learning point. I'm doing learning today and telling you about a way of approaching my thought life so I can reflect and be effective about the way I'm operating in the world and the way I see others operating in the world, and also identify some of those core beliefs that change my heart and change my behavior so that I am not always dealing at the level of behavior, but I can actually deal at the level of what's underneath, what's driving that behavior. Thank you very much for being here.